Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Blades and Bezels, the show where I review, rant, and ramble about expensive toys for adult girls and boys. Today I've got an extra special piece to show you. This is a Kody Eutsler DUK with slotted milling. That is DUK, DUK, stands for Daily Utility Knife. It's the larger of his two duck and duckling models. And here it is in all of its glory. He's a young knife maker. He's based out of the Midwest, putting out really stellar work over the last few years. He's kind of become a little bit of a darling in the EDC and custom knife community, with good reason, because his stuff is fantastic. So let's get to it. We'll start off with some measurements and size comparisons. Let's go. Alright folks, we'll take some quick measurements of the Kody Eutsler full-size duck. Lovely knife indeed. Start off with the scales here, or the handle. And we are looking at a handle length of right around 4.6 inches. Blade length, uh, 3.5, just about 3.5 on the dot, with a cutting length of about 3.34. Okay, just a lovely looking knife, isn't it? So let's do some size comparisons. Here we have got the Victorinox A-Locks Pioneer. And of course, its adorable kid brother, the Cadet. What else we got? Always nice to compare the duck to a duckling. You can see a lot of similar details here. Clearly the duck is quite a bit bigger overall. Get these out of the way. Show you that. Okay. Always within reach is my Cheburkov Striche. Still a little bit smaller. Smaller blade. I think this guy's like 3.3 inches or so. Smaller overall. We of course have the Shirogorov F3, just a monster of a knife, bigger than everything. Doesn't fit within the frame, and I'm too lazy to readjust. Sorry. What else? What else is within arm's reach? Sorry.
We've got the Cheburkov Urbis.
Here's kind of a random one. We've got the Hiroki Ota carbon fiber slip joint. Just a little guy. It's just a little guy. Oh, that was embarrassing. There we go. I think that's it for the close-ups. I'll meet you back up top. Alright, and we are back to look at the knife. So, first thing I like to talk about is the action. Kody is known for some spectacular actions, and this knife is no exception. Detent is perfectly tuned. Knife just, that blade just shoots out. Great middle finger, or index finger flip. Great middle finger flick. All around, just really nice action. Extremely smooth. Drops shut. Whereas his duck models have a little bit lighter of a blade and tend to glide shut, this one has more of a guillotine-y sort of action. But yeah, extremely smooth, really well tuned detent. just a joy to use. I think typically, at least like the ducks from the last year or so, run on skiff bearings, which are kind of becoming like the gold standard of bearings among custom knife makers. And yeah, just extremely smooth, addictive fidget knife here. Moving on to the aesthetic portion. As always, we'll start off with the blade. This blade is nice, has kind of, looks like maybe a very light stone wash over a polish. See that a little bit better. Reminds me of the sheer Goroff blade finish a little bit. Where it is extremely smooth, but still kind of slick and polished. This one has a little bit more of a traditional blade shape. It's a longer blade. You get this nice belly here. Again, a very good grind for cutting. Didn't learn my lesson in the last video, so I'm still not sure if this is a flat grind or might just be like a convex grind or something. But in any case, great slicer. Very, very nice grinds up top. Again, you've got this perfectly smooth, straight line moving up the top of the blade. Nice deep swedges on the side that are so deep it almost gives the top of the blade, the spine, like a curved, like a Persian look to it. But I do think that's just an effect of these hefty swedges here. There we go, kind of a better look at the swedges here and the transitions. Really, really well done. Thumb studs are Zerk, as are the pivot collars, the pocket clip, and the back spacer. Yeah, again, no jimping. I think that's characteristic of most modern knives from Kody Eutsler. Like, this knife would probably benefit from having a little bit of jimping because it is quite slick up here. Do you really need it or using this knife for hard use? Probably not, but I still think it would be a nice, kind of a nice touch. But in any case, this is a slotted model, which is relatively rare even among ducks, which are already rare by default. But it's got these, 3 slots milled here that sort of go through the scales, matching holes on this side, so that's kind of cool. One thing I really like is that you can see the pocket clip sticking up there, just a little detail that, I don't know, really works for me. I think it's pretty sweet. These pivot collars are beautifully done. I love that clearly they were installed and then the scales were milled, and I think it's just a lovely effect. Very smooth transition, and one of my favorite features of the knife, personally. Moving on down, we've got this nice diagonal milling. Up here, transitions to the other direction. I love the sort of space where the direction changes is just so smooth and well done. Really flawless milling on these, really, really beautiful. And also cool when it hits the flats here on the spine of the handle. Gives it kind of like a ridged or scalloped look. Back spacer is pretty plain. It's Zerk, it is what it is. Has sort of almost an orange peel finish to it, which is not something you see a lot with zirconium, and I do like that. But other than that, it's clean, it's plain. It's got a lanyard hole, which I'm not really partial towards. This one in particular is very small for like any lanyard, but I'm not a lanyard guy anyway. I think it would be a little bit cleaner if it was handled like the DUK, where there is no space for a lanyard and it's just a smooth transition to the butt of the blade. But it is what it is. Certainly not a deal breaker, although I will say ergonomically it's not great either. It's kind of pointy here at the back, and if you're playing with this knife for a while, you will notice that it forms a hot spot over time as it sort of digs into your palm. But aside from that, really, really well done. You've got these great sort of bevels on the inside of the scales here. Always a nice touch, always something I really like to see because it just shows good attention to detail. Then moving on to the pocket clip, it is just a nice piece of zirconium. It's got that same sort of orange peel finish to it. I think it looks really good. The orange peel is a nice effect. Kind of cool here too, the milling of the clip, like it's, you know, creates a sort of a raised platform. And I love, this is something that Kody does on a few of his knives. Get my fingers out of the way. The way that he mills the scales so they sort of look like they're rising up to meet various pieces of hardware, in this case the pocket clip. I think that looks great. The pocket clip itself, you know, functions really well as a pocket clip. Good amount of pressure, a nice long ramp, which is something that Kody likes to do. That works really well. Yeah, just a great knife in the pocket. No internal milling on this guy, which is fine. I mean, I think it's a nice touch in general, adds a little bit of extra refinement. You know, the scales aren't thick, right? And the knife isn't heavy per se for its blade length, but it's still kind of nice to see internal milling at this price point just because, you know, it's something we expect these days. So kind of disappointed not to see it here. Again, certainly not a deal breaker, but, you know, it'd be a nice touch. Knife. Again, aesthetically, I think it's just beautiful. The overall shape of this thing too is just wonderful. I think, like, you know, great lines here. Very, very cool. Good attention to detail. You know, you can see like everything lines up here. This lines up really nicely up here. As always, I like to touch on price briefly. But I would say these probably go for, I don't know, 11 to 1400, depending on features and materials and all that fun stuff. And yeah, you know, again, at that price point, I think it's a pretty solid buy if you're looking for a high-end thumb stud knife. Secondary on these is a little bit trickier. These go for I don't know, maybe 17 to 1900 bucks on the secondary market in this configuration. And you know, again, you're nearing that $2,000 price point, and things become really hard to justify, in my opinion. Is this knife worth $2,000? I'm not really sure. It's hard to say. But you know, certainly it's a fantastic piece. I don't know anybody who's doing this same kind of like custom American-made titanium milled thumb stud knives that are, you know, gonna scratch exactly the same itch at a lower price point, right? So yeah, I mean, would I recommend this knife to a collector or a serious buyer? Hell yeah, it's a great knife. The action's fantastic. The details are really well executed, nice materials, and it's a good carry. You know, fits well in the pocket, good blade steel. This one uses 20 CV, which again is very tough blade steel. It's a tool steel, takes a beating, very resilient, but also sharpens up quite nicely and makes for a good user. Yeah, guys, I think that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to crush that like button, hit subscribe, and tune in next time for more fun knife and watch content.